Alright, we're going to write a SOLIDWORKS add-in that actually prevents the user from editing certain custom properties. I've got Visual Studio 2019 open here, and I think I've ran it as an administrator, so I invite you to run Visual Studio as an admin. Right-click on that icon on your desktop or on the taskbar, and then run it as an admin, and then click on the new project button that shows up in that first dialog. I'm going to look for SOLIDWORKS SDK add-in template. Now, if you don't have this, go to the Visual Studio marketplace where you can find a bunch of extensions for Visual Studio 2019, older and newer, and look for the SOLIDWORKS SDK by Blue Byte Systems. And when you find that, just install it, and it should add two project templates, one in C# and one in bb.net. We're going to use the one that's in C# to write this add-in. So let me go and click on next. We'll call this prop gatekeeper, and then let me click on create, and this creates our SOLIDWORKS add-in project with one file, and that file is the add-in.cs. There's some squiggly lines here that we're going to fix by restoring the NuGet packages, so let's do that. So I'm going to right click on the project or the solution, and then I'm going to click on restore NuGet packages, and then I can right click on the project or the solution and click on build. It builds. However, even though that it builds successfully, I always like to upgrade the SDK to the latest version possible. So on NuGet.org, I think I've pushed version 11, but locally here on my system, I think I've got version up to 13. I'm going to push the latest versions of the SDK, so you guys will have access to those by the time this video gets published. I'm just going to click on update. I invite everybody that is going to use the SDK to actually review the license terms. It's very important to go through those and agree. Let's go back to add-in.cs. If you've written SOLIDWORKS add-ins before, you will know that your add-in class will inherit from will implement the interface ISW add-in interface with the ISW add-in, right? We don't need to do that, because we're using the Blue Byte SOLIDWORKS SDK, and the add-in base class here takes care of so many things. Connecting SOLIDWORKS, creating some awesome functionality that has to do with document management, custom property management, login, all that stuff. Registering the add-in as a common interrupt, DLL so that SOLIDWORKS can read. All of those things are taken care of by the base class here. So the only thing that we really need to do is really override the connect to SOLIDWORKS method, where we'll just call the custom property manager. This is not to be confused with the SOLIDWORKS custom property manager from the SOLIDWORKS API. This is a wrapper class from the SOLIDWORKS SDK here that wraps itself around the SOLIDWORKS API custom property manager, and it just provides an easy way of accessing events that relate to the custom property creation, custom property deletion, or changing of values. So in here, I'm going to really focus on changes to custom properties. So what we'll do here is that whenever the add-in connects to SOLIDWORKS, it's going to start listening for changes to custom properties, right? And in here, we're going to say, for example, just to keep this video short and sweet, we're going to validate that if the property that is change is equal to description, and we'll change here, we'll change the way that the string comparison occurs so that we ignore the casing. That if that is the property that changed, we're going to say, hey, handled equal true. Well, this will ignore the change or the changes, and then we can use this base class property called application that sends a nicely formatted or presented error message. We can type in here, this operation is not permitted. Now obviously you could have more than one property that you could check for. In here I'm only checking for description. We might extend this later so that we can double check if the property that is changed is part of a list of or an array of properties, so that we can make this more versatile. But let's just focus on just getting a proper foundation here and building this out and testing it out. So technically speaking, this is the only code that we need to prevent a custom property called description from being edited. I'm going to go to the project properties here and then make sure that I'm on the build tab. I have to switch the platform target here to x64 and make sure that I have register for common interrupt here checked. And the last thing would be is to actually start the external program. This will have to be SOLIDWORKS.exe. A really awesome way of doing it is that you fire up SOLIDWORKS, you go to the task manager, you jump into the details tab, you look for SOLIDWORKS, and it should pop up here, and then you right click on it, go to open file location, and then you press your left shift key, you right click, and then you click on copy as path. You go back to Visual Studio, and then you remove those two double quotes at the start at the end of the string, and then I think we should be good for the most part. So let's just let's close SOLIDWORKS, because this needs to be closed so that we can build and load this. Let's see, I think I need to build one more time, and this should open up SOLIDWORKS and start the debugging process. Initially we have to enable the add-in from the add-in list. So we're gonna do that here in a second. So let me close this, go to add-ins, and then in my list of add-ins here, let's see here, we called it prop gatekeeper. Right, I got that checked, and now I can just click on OK here, and that will activate the add-in. Now I can go and create a new part for that matter. Go to File and then Properties. Let's create a new property here called Description ABC. Well, let's just put it at A. Put A as the value initially. Click OK. Now if we go to Properties again and we change this to AB, we can see that that actually has not changed, has been permitted. So let me go back here and check that I actually have the add-in enabled. And I do have the add-in enabled. Oh yeah, that's why. Description. Oops. Let me go and click OK here. That adds it, and then go back to Properties and maybe ABC here. Click OK, and then I get this message box now that says that this operation is not permitted. I'm going to click on OK here and go back and inspect that I still have the old value, which is AB. Awesome. Let's make this even more interesting. Instead of having to hard code the value of the description property, we're going to turn that into a setting. Now let's go and add this NuGet package called soft. Switch over to NuGet.org here, and then I think it's called soft circuits.win registry, and install it. So I think we need to go here and upgrade our application to target 4.7.2 for the latest version of the Win circuit or the soft circuit WinRegistry NuGet package to work. So let's go back and again target WinCircuit. This one right here. So I think 3.0.2 requires, I think, .NET Framework 4.2.7. I think 3.0.0 can work with 4.6, but this should not be a problem if we just you upgrade the version of the .NET Framework version of our Visual Studio project. So I'm going to click on OK here, and you can see the dependencies being added. If I go back here and I say, you know what, okay, let's make this more, let's not hard code this value. So the WinCircuit WinRegistry NuGet package allows us to create a class that we can call settings. And this class would inherit from a base class called the registry settings. And this allows us to define properties here that we could actually save into the Windows registry. So I'm going to call this properties for that matter. Pretty simple. Let's see what it has a problem with. Has a problem with constructor. So let's just change that constructor to be base. So we have to specify the company name. In our case, this will be Blue Byte. Blue Byte, yes. Systems Inc. Now application name, we can call it prop gatekeeper. And then this is a very important setting. So in case you are going to run this add-in on a computer where you actually do not want the user to be able to fiddle around with the settings and change those properties that they can't edit, you should probably put this as local machine. For the most part, with a lot of companies that have security policies, most users will not have the ability to access local machine except for an admin who can do that. But if you change this to current user, then the user is going to run the admin might actually be able to edit the registry on their current user account. So I'll change this to local machine. In my case, this is going to work because I've got the right user access. And then I can just go here and say settings, var settings equals new settings. And all I think I have to do is just to load the settings. So settings.load and say if settings contains, I think it's to list dot contains, and I'll just drop this contains. So our property here is of type an array of strings, control dot, so settings dot properties. I think it just works with contains, I think. Yes, so what we needed is to use the link library here. So let's see if this contains the property, and then I think it's string compare dot ignore case. So this works. So if this contains that, so if the settings contain the property that we are about to edit, then do your thing here. Say the operation is not permitted. Awesome. By default, let's make this an empty array of strings. And make sure that it's not a null. So let's do this. If it's not null. Alright. So we need to have a way of actually setting these these properties that we want to protect. In here, we are loading the settings. We need to allow the user to be able to set the settings, or the admin for that matter, right? So the Blue Byte SOLIDWORKS SDK does provide a few awesome menu items that we could use. So let's start by creating a menu item here. So menu item, and then we'll just use the namespace Blue Byte SOLIDWORKS SDK attributes.menus, and we'll just define a menu called options, or we call this prop. Let's call it prop gatekeeper, and then what kind of document? Let's just start with part documents for that matter. Make it easier for us. So part doc, and then let's go and add. Is this a top level menu? Yes. And that's pretty much it. So that's the top level menu. And then we'll just add a menu underneath that one and call this settings at top level menu at property prop gatekeeper, and the callback method we'll just do open settings. Oops. Open settings. And then control dot, we'll just generate that method. It has to be, unfortunately, a public void method. So this will open up this will do something. And in here, the to do is show a UI that enables the user to edit the settings, right? So let's create a really simple form, add, and then form, we'll call this settings form.cs, and then in here, we're not going to go fancy, we're just going to use a property editor, a property grid. Make sure that that property grid gets docked. Where's the dock? There it is. So let's get it docked so that it fills up the entire available space. You can change the form of the icon or the border style of the entire window. So that would be form border style to fixed beauty. So fixed tool window, and then we'll just keep this changes to settings. Perfect. Now, in the constructor, we're just going to supply it with a settings object, and then we'll do property grid dot selected object that will be equal to settings, and then we'll call it done. So let's go back to. Let's go back to. Let's put this down here and close this. Go back to addin.cs, and in here we'll load our settings. So let's just copy this. So that's the setting. We'll save the settings at the end after the changes, and we'll just create the form. So form equal new settings form that we supply it with settings. And then we'll just do form.showDialog. That's it. Now, as an admin that has the ability to edit the local machine registry settings, you can actually run this on your computer and then find that node in the registry and export it, and then install that on the registry of the users that are supposed to run the add-in. And maybe we can also do a try catch block here for the save, so that in case it errors out, in case somebody tries to, save the settings maliciously or change them, then we'll swallow this exception without revealing the exception or crashing the program. So the user will not be able to change those settings, assuming that they do not have access to the local machine registry here. I hope that makes sense, but obviously if that does not make sense, then you're more than welcome to leave a comment. I'll be more than happy to answer those comments. Now, launching SOLIDWORKS again, I can go, I have to open a part. It's very important because the menu is in the part mode of SOLIDWORKS. So let's close that and just go and add 3 more. Right. Let's do that. Document, assembly, sorry. And then drawing. And finally, none. And then we'll just copy paste this here. Copy paste this here. Copy paste this here. And we should be good. So this menu item will show up in parts, assemblies, drawings, and when no document is shown in SOLIDWORKS. So let's start again. And if I go to tools and I go to add-ins and I go and enable my add-in, which is this one here, I go to tools again, I should be able to see prop gatekeeper and I can see the settings. So if I click on this, it does not work because we missed one little detail, is that this is a menu item. So the option here is this a top level menu. For the prop gatekeeper it is, however for the second one is not. So we need to change this to false. False here, false here, false here. Otherwise it will think it is a top level menu and will not be able to click it and get that window again. So we need to run SOLIDWORKS one more time and then enable the add-in and then run the go to tools and find our settings page. So let's go and do that one more time here. So prop gatekeeper, maximize this, go to tools, prop gatekeeper. You can see that we've got ourselves a window, and then we can just edit the properties here. So let's do description. You could add part number, you know, a bunch of stuff here. So just click on OK, close this. If I go to edit again, go to the settings, you could see that, you know, I've got my settings that have been saved. Now, if this was a user that does not have the ability to edit the registry, obviously that's not going to work. Now, if I go and create a new part, or open an existing one, and then try to add a custom property called part number, call it A, leave it A, I should be able to, because we're not watching for custom properties being added. However, if I were to go and edit this to be B, then I should get something that should get this error message saying this operation is not permitted. If I go back here and check, then the original value stands. Awesome. Let's close out of this. Now if I go down to here, we could actually target not just custom properties being changed, but also custom properties being added, and then custom properties being deleted. So for example, awesome. So I can delete this, and just copy paste this good code here. Awesome. So this extends to targeting properties that we do not want to add and we do not want to delete for that matter. Cool. Now there's one more thing that this add-in is missing, and is that the ability to prevent the user from disabling the add-in. It's something that I've thought very thoroughly about and is possible to do, not with the current state of the SDK, but what you could do as a SOLIDWORKS or PDM administrator is that you can actually override the add-in pre-close. So this method will fire before the add-in closes, and you can tell the user, warning, you should not be doing this. At least, you know, the user would know that they are not supposed to be disabling this add-in. Awesome. I will put a link to all the resources that are needed to write this add-in in the description of this video. If you've liked what you've seen today, then please make sure to like the video and subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you're watching this on LinkedIn, then you're more than welcome to follow me. Send me your questions over on LinkedIn or in a comment on this video. I'll be more than happy to answer them. And I would like to thank you for sticking up to this moment. And then I'll make more videos about the SDK. I'll see you in the next one. Thank you.